Hey guys, what's up? We have the remaining Elementsaber monsters, courtesy of the Elementsaber introduction video, that will appear within the Flames of Destruction pack. Now, the first card is Elementsaber Aina. This is a level 2 Earth Warrior monster with 900 attack and 1800 defense. And its effect is 1. Once per turn, you can send one Elementsaber monster from your hand to the graveyard, then target one Elementsaber or Elemental Lord monster, except Elementsaber Aina in your graveyard, special summon that target, ignoring its summoning conditions. Two, once per turn, while this card is in your graveyard, you can declare one attribute. Until the end of this turn, the attribute of this card in the graveyard becomes that declared attribute. This is one of the smaller monsters that are supposed to help with the Elemental Lords. Its first effect enables you to either bring out an Elementsaber, or even better, an Elemental Lord, without having to meet any conditions. This enables them to use their effects without the annoyance of meeting the exact 5 on the same attribute condition. This makes it more versatile, as if you have a couple of Elemental Lords, you have a choice of which one you want to go in, depending on what your opponent has on the field. For example, you could go into Windrose if you wanted to destroy all their back row cards, or Mullen Glacier if you want to get rid of their hand by getting rid of 2 cards. As for the second effect, to be able to manipulate the attributes in your graveyard prevents you from having too much of one attribute and getting what is needed with the others to meet out the exact 5. This effect is common with the rest of them and provides more versatility for yourself to decide an attribute rather than having to decide an attribute for your deck. You don't have to dedicate yourself to just pure water, fire, earth, wind, light, or darkness. This will probably be the most popular of the support cards, considering the design of it. The look is very Japanese, cutesy, or what they call kawaii. So, by that standard, expect when this gets its TCG release for this to be rarity bumped to secret rare, and for this card to be something like a £30-40 card. Of note, the word Aina is the Hawaiian word for land. The next card is Elementsaber Nalu. This is a level 3 Water Warrior effect monster with 1500 attack and 1000 defense. And its effect is 1. Once per turn, you can send one Elementsaber monster from your hand to the graveyard, then target one Elementsaber or Elemental Lord monster in your graveyard, except Elementsaber Nalu, add that target to your hand. 2. Once per turn, while this card is in your graveyard, you can declare one attribute. Until the end of this turn, the attribute of this card in the graveyard becomes that declared attribute. This has a decent, well-rounded stats. The second effect is the same as the others, but the first effect enables you to add a card to your hand. This lets you manipulate your graveyard, as you can avoid yourself having too much of one attribute if you are unfortunate enough to have that problem. Nalu is the Hawaiian word for wave. The final card is Elementsaber Molahu, or Molhu, whichever way it's pronounced. This is a Dark Warrior level 4 effect monster with 1900 attack and 0 defense. And its effect is 1. During either player's turn, you can send one Elementsaber monster from your hand to the graveyard, then target one face-up monster on the field, change that target to face-down defense position. 2. Once per turn, while this card is in your graveyard, you can declare one attribute. Until the end of this turn, the attribute of this card in the graveyard becomes that declared attribute. Out of all the Elementsaber support monsters, it has the highest attack, and so it can keep itself on the field relatively decently. As for its first effect, this card is able to change a monster to face down defense position by discarding another copy of an Elementsaber. This may seem like a strange effect, as it has nothing to do with graveyard manipulation to get the correct attributes, outside of, and this is a bit of a stretch, the fact that you send the Elementsaber to the graveyard. But then again, it does provide you with some protection, as it can respond during either player's turn. So if you are familiar with the way your opponent's deck is being played, you will have the ability to stop them before they are able to go into their combos. Mulahu is the Hawaiian word for dusk or twilight. This provides the total list of the Elementsabers that constitute the smallest versions of the Elemental Lords. However, the one issue I have is that Williard is a level 5 and is a member of the Light attribute, which means Konami may intend to have 3 variations of each attribute: a smaller warrior, a tribute warrior, and the final Elemental Lord boss monster, meaning you could potentially see a total of 18 monsters for this archetype. However, again, knowing how Konami is, they tend not to finish off an archetype any time from when they originally make it. An example being the Charmer monsters and their familiars. Whilst 3 of them have been released, the Wind, Light and Dark familiars have not been released, showing their lack of consistency, and chances are we won't see the completed version for another several years. I don't know, this is just my take and opinion on how Konami does things. Another example is of the Monarchs. You had the initial Monarchs such as Mobius, you had Thestalos, you had Grandmarg, Zaborg. Then you had the introduction of Chaos and the Light version as well. Then we got the Mega Monarchs that came out around Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5. I believe one of the characters in the anime used it. Can't remember his name now. It was Silvio Salvatore, who was in one of the first 10 episodes, tried to bully Zuzu with that card, and he ended up using Mobius the Frost Monarch, as well as its smaller version. The non-attributed form also came out relatively late as well. Which of these cards will you be using in your deck, and which proportions will you be adding? 1, 2 or 3 copies of them, and why? How much are you prepared to pay for the deck as it is? And do you potentially see any support for it in the future? Or perhaps maybe we have to go back to the original versions where players were using perhaps attribute-specific decks, so you would focus on one of their effects and just use that particular card. Personally, I like the fact that they're being a bit more innovative with attribute-type decks, where they focus on the variety of attributes rather than any particular type or level. It's quite refreshing on their part, and it actually provides a lot more variety to the gameplay, considering that with attribute decks you could run so many different effects, so many different mechanics, even one-off cards you might not see coming from anywhere. suddenly your opponent drops a battle fader on you and you don't know where you are, what this deck is. That's the type of Yu-Gi-Oh! I hope that we can get back to. Leave your comments down below, like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe, click the bell for notifications, and as always, thank you for taking the time to watch this video.
And